I fed microbes with this, and 3 days later the soil came alive. No fertilizer required. I was ready to give up on my garden. No matter what I added, compost, worm castings, pricey organic blends, nothing made my plants thrive. The soil was stubborn, tired, and worst of all, lifeless. But what I stumbled upon next changed everything. A simple, ancient technique that brought the biology in my soil roaring back in less than a week. If you've been stuck in a cycle of feeding your soil and watching it fall flat, this guide might be exactly what you need. Not a gimmick, not a shortcut, but a real soil-first strategy that rewires your garden from the roots up. Let's dig right into what makes this method so powerful, and why it's quietly becoming the go-to for gardeners who want results without reaching for a fertilizer bag. Why most gardens struggle to stay alive. Here's a truth many gardeners learn the hard way. Nutrient-rich soil isn't the same as living soil. You can add compost, fertilizer, or mulch all day long, but if the biology underground is broken, your plants will always be playing catch-up. That's because nutrients are only useful if there's an active network of microbes, fungi, and earthworms to deliver them where and when your plants need them. You know, a lot of modern gardening focuses on feeding the plants, but in a healthy, resilient ecosystem, you're really feeding the soil life, and in return, that web of underground organisms does all the heavy lifting. The problem is most soil today, especially in containers, raised beds, or city plots, is dead or dormant. That's where this ancient soil layering method comes in. The fastest way I've found to bring soil back to life, well, after years of trial and error, I discovered a method that revitalizes even the most tired, compacted soil using nothing more than layered organic materials and biology boosters. It works because it mimics what nature already does in the forest floor: slow, steady decomposition in a moist, dark, protected environment. The process starts by digging a shallow pit in your planting area. This doesn't need to be deep or wide, just enough to create a pocket below the surface. Then, the magic begins with the layering. First, add coarse woody material, think small twigs, dry stems, or thin bark. This layer acts as a structure, keeping the area breathable while slowly breaking down over time. On top of that goes partially decomposed organic matter, kitchen scraps, banana peels, vegetable tops, anything that hasn't fully rotted, but is soft enough to break down quickly. The critical detail here is moisture. Every layer needs to be damp, not soaking, to kickstart the natural fermentation process. If it's too dry, the microbes won't wake up. If it's too wet, things can turn anaerobic, which stalls decomposition and invites the wrong microbes. Here's the part that made the biggest difference in my soil-adding starchy rice water. After rinsing uncooked rice, that cloudy water you usually throw away is loaded with simple sugars and starches that microbes love. When poured into the layered pit, rice water acts like a microbial invitation, specifically attracting beneficial lactic acid bacteria. These microbes not only help break down organic material faster, but also set the stage for fungal networks to establish. And once that happens, everything changes. Fungi act as nutrient highways, delivering minerals directly to plant roots and improving soil structure at the same time. What shocked me was how fast this process kicked in. Within 72 hours, the soil over the pit was noticeably looser. It had that unmistakable earthy smell of healthy soil. Even better, I spotted small fungal threads creeping through the mulch and, soon after, earthworms returning. So a lot of gardeners assume this is just trench composting, but honestly, it's not. Traditional composting focuses on decomposition above ground, often exposed to air and, all those varying temperatures. What we're doing here is different. By burying moist, nutrient-rich layers just below the surface and inoculating them with microbial boosters, we're actually creating a controlled fermentation zone. This underground environment stays stable. It's dark, warm, and perfectly humid. Really ideal conditions for microbes and fungi to multiply rapidly. And, because the materials are layered intentionally with the right balance of carbon, like twigs and leaves and nitrogen, like food scraps and green waste, you don't get the foul smells or rot that can happen in open compost heaps. More importantly, because the microbes are already working in place, the benefits reach your plant roots much faster. That means quicker results, less waiting, and honestly, no need to constantly turn piles or haul compost across your garden. Once I started building these underground fermentation pockets, I began noticing something I hadn't seen in years: a real response from the plants. A struggling row of leafy greens that had looked pale and floppy for weeks perked up within days of me layering nearby. So, a tomato transplant that had been sitting static for nearly 2 weeks suddenly pushed out new growth and firmed up its stem. I didn't add any commercial fertilizer, I didn't change my watering. The only thing I did was reintroduce life to the soil. And that's what makes this method so powerful. It doesn't rely on expensive amendments or rare ingredients, just the right materials, moisture, and a boost of microbial activity. Whether you're growing in a container, a raised bed, or directly in the ground, this layering method can be adapted to fit your space. For containers, you'll want to scale it down. Create smaller pockets of fermented layers just below the root zone before planting. In raised beds, dig a central trench and build a microbial spine that, feeds the whole bed over time. And if you've got fruit trees or in-ground beds, try forming circular zones around the base, microbe mounds that honestly activate the surrounding soil. You don't need to do this everywhere at once. Just start small and move across your garden, a few square feet at a time. Each layered patch becomes a launch pad for new microbial life, slowly transforming the entire bed from dead dirt to living soil. So, what if you're missing ingredients? Well, this method is incredibly flexible. If you don't have rice water, you can use diluted whey or even a spoonful of unsweetened yogurt mixed into water. No leaf mold? Just scoop up a bit of soil from under an old compost pile or a shaded forest patch. Anything that smells rich and earthy will have the right biology. What matters is balance. You need carbon for structure, nitrogen for food, moisture for fermentation, and some form of microbial kickstart. Beyond that, the method is yours to experiment with. Why I haven't bought fertilizer in months? Since I started using this method, my garden has changed completely. I water less, I feed less, and somehow, I'm harvesting more. But the biggest shift is how I now measure success. Not just in yield, but in how the soil feels in my hands. It's crumbly, dark, and full of life. The earthworms are back. There's that forest floor smell I used to only dream about. So, this method isn't a shortcut. It's definitely not a silver bullet, but, it is a reliable, repeatable way to bring your soil back to life, and when you have living soil, everything else just kind of follows. If your garden feels like it's stuck on pause, well, this might be your moment to try something different, something natural, something that actually works. Layer, cover, and walk away. The microbes will do the rest. This is Soil and Crop Central, helping you grow more by working with nature, not against it.